All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session of Dot Talks, webinar. Dot Talks is a platform where we invite people from around the globe to share their views, ideas, opinions on various issues. And today we have a very interesting session for you, a session on Bob Dylan. Now, what could be more special than this? And Bob Dylan is a legend. He is a songwriter, author, visual artist who has been a major, a real major figure in the pop culture scene of the U.S. for more than 50 years. And most of his celebrated works, it kind of ranges from the 60s, blowing in the wind, the times they are a changing. And these are some of the songs which we have grown up. Our parents have grown up listening to them, and we have as well. In 1962, he released a bunch of songs under an album which was named after his own name, Bob Dylan, and it comprised mainly of traditional folk songs, and that's when he made his uh, breakthrough as a songwriter with the release of the song "The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan." Okay. Uh, and of course, when it comes to prizes, awards, he has won a lot of awards through the years. Golden Globe, Golden Globes, Oscars, as well as the Pulitzer Prize, and most interestingly, the Nobel Prize in Literature for having created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. And today, to speak on Bob Dylan and analyze his songs, we have Dr. Doc- Dr. Shobna P. Matthews, who is an associate professor at Christ University, Department of English Studies. She has over 22 years of teaching experience. For her PhD work, she had actually looked at Bob Dylan, uh, and she had looked at folk song as protest, a study of the works of Bob Dylan. That was in 1996, 20 years ahead of Bob Dylan being awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. She believes that literature is to be lived. She has been published in various periodicals like The Hindu, The Week, the Deccan Herald, and has been profiled in the Times of India as one of the coolest college teachers in Bangalore. And fortunate for me, I have had the privilege of being her student for 5 years during my own college years at Rice University. So we know that the session is going to be great. And with this, I would like to hand over the time to our speaker for today. Okay, Dr. Shobna P. Matthews, you can take over the time. And while the talk is going on, I would request everyone to keep their microphones on mute. You can use the chat window to type out any questions, and a question answer round will be held at the end of the session. So I hand over the time now to our guest speaker.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible, visible, because I need to confess that technology is not my strength, though I've been, kind of pushed into this world reluctantly, all of this. Anyway, thank you so much, Anjan, for all those lovely things you said about me, mostly untrue. Need to do a quick little correction here. I wish I had worked on Bob Dylan for my PhD. I think I would have been a far more consistent researcher. But I worked on Dylan for my MPhil, which is, as you know, a pre-doctoral degree. My PhD, which took many years in coming out, was about Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits. But of course, I didn't look only at the music aspect, I looked at literary aspects of it. Anyway, and about being the coolest teacher in Bangalore, I think we have a lot of myths floating around. The media creates monsters. So I'm grateful for this one because I really don't think I'm that cool in any way at all. Anyway, it's really nice being here. I'm particularly happy to be speaking uh, in at with the collaborating with Tetsu Nagaland. Yes, as Anjan said, he was one of my students, one of my most enthusiastic students with a lot of very interesting insights himself. It's really lovely to see the discourse grow. Students taking your ideas and I describe myself nowadays as a virus. I seem to be getting into places where I shouldn't be and attacking the most vulnerable. But anyway, it's lovely to be here. I don't know, it's really difficult for me to gauge how many of you are familiar with Bob Dylan. I do see veteran musicians and people from all disciplines, fields of life here. Some of you who cut your teeth on Dylan. Some of you who probably wondering who's this guy, Dylan, who, what is he Punjabi, Dylan, what, all of this. So for all of this, so and my talk here will probably be validating or stuff which a lot of you already know and believe in. We all believe that Dylan deserves richly the Nobel, but that's us here. When he did win the Nobel, I faced so much flack because it was hard to get at Dylan. I mean, how does one tell a man who doesn't care that we don't think you deserve an award? He doesn't care whether he gets it or not. He didn't even show up to collect it. And when he did, he sent him something from Spark Notes. If there's anybody from my class here, remember what I say about Spark Notes. Anyway, so that's what Dylan did. I mean, he's always been anti-establishment. And before I get into details, this morning I woke up and on Instagram, I see the first thing he has this, literally thumbing his nose at society, false prophets album cover, and he's still at it for those. And then I saw on the internet, people asking, is Dylan still alive? Well, proof positive that he is. There's another album in the pipeline and a song which was released a few days ago, Murder Most Foul. So there's no questioning his being alive or not. But then when we talk about artists, we're not talking about them being alive as people. We're talking about the wealth that they give us, right? I'm trying not to. I was told, some of you have heard these stories, so please bear with me. I'll have to repeat myself. I was told when I started researching Dylan, and this is something I tell my young researchers now, please make a distinction between who you are as a researcher and as a fan. And to avoid being, like a fangirl and get excited about what size Dylan's shoes were or what color was his eyes and things like that. I do know he has blue eyes, bluer than Robin's egg, she said. But, we're talking about Joan Baez here, for those who are uninitiated, his lifelong soulmate, whom he never married, but I'd like to think that some relationships go beyond that. And it's fascinating. I think everything that I have done in my life has been informed in some way by the Dylan mystique. Having said that, I have curated because Dylan himself writes songs that are 17 minutes long, right? And a lot of people, especially in the field that I come from, academia, we're very snobbish here. We have very strict rules about what is art and what is not, and what can be, what can't be. I agree, we do need some kind of moderation and deliberation, but it's really fascinating that how did Dylan get away with these things? I was having a long argument, nearly 2 hours one night, with my son, who's an artist as well, talking and trying to define art, trying to define rock, trying to define literature, music, and we found that while these domains exist, it's really hard to define what rock is, except in opposition. It is not this. It is not folk. It is not popular. In fact, if you need to be a rock star, you need to move beyond the popular, which is why you'll find that art rock bands like Pink Floyd, many of the bands, and I'm not going to go into who exactly now, but plenty of them, the first thing they did was broke establishment rules about production, about broadcast, right? It's really difficult to listen to, of course, today with the internet, it's different. You have dedicated radio stations, but on regular radio or television, it's hard to have a Pink Floyd song, which goes into 11 minutes, or which goes, because the average broadcast time is 3 minutes, on a show. So Dylan here today, last week just produced a song which is 17 minutes. 17 minutes is a long time, right? In fact, Anjan has given me 20 minutes. So I'm going to begin with, so I'm going to take this very almost casually, because I think my researching Dylan days are over, and today he's become part of me, part of who I am. In fact, I would like to think that I found a soulmate in him where many others have failed to give me insights he has. And let me read to you some of the things that influenced him and what. The first song that I'm going to play you, and Reshi, I just hope I'm doing the right thing. I'm curating this session. So I'd rather than calling it a talk, it's like a curated session. So I have 4 songs that I want to play for you, time permitting. I'm excited about all of them. So even if I don't get to play the whole song to you, please go listen to them afterwards on Spotify or wherever you can find these things. So the very first song that I'm going to play for you is a song which has been misattributed to Jimi Hendrix. Everybody knows, I'm pretty sure if there's anybody here who knows it, unmute yourself and call it out. You know which song I'm going to play? Please don't say something which I'm not going to play. Anyone here is familiar with the song which Jimi Hendrix stole? You know, I don't know. Uh, anyway, if you're not familiar with it, here goes. Let me tell you. This is this song called "All Along the Watchtower." Right? It's one of my personal favorites. Let me start presenting it. I'll quickly tell you, but before I present it, here's something I was talking about with a friend just before we started this session. Too late, Advait. I said it anyway. So the session, the song is begins with this iconic line. Yes, Rishabh, brownie points. So the song begins with this iconic line, where he says, "Let me just read to you." Introduces two major characters, the Joker and the thief. Right? Uh, I've been teaching for over 22 years, and I'm not supposed to begin a talk by talking about jokers and thieves. We're supposed to be invoking, divine presences, but we're talking jokers and thieves. So who's the joker and who's the thief? And this is something I was talking about to a friend an hour ago. So listen up. It's something which was read to Dylan by a biographer called Jonathan Cott. And he says, all of us need to be thieves, especially the artistic community. What does that mean? He says, from a thief, you learn to work at night, right? Interesting. And the number of conversations I've had well into 3 a.m. with so many of you restless souls, it's fascinating. All of you working on scripts, on poems, on research, which I believe is artistic. If one cannot gain what one wants in one night, you need to try again the next night, because thieves are relentless because they know where it's at, right? The pursuit of quality, which is another one of my fetishes in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, is a book I swear by. It talks about quality. He also says uh, thieves learn to love one another because your co-workers very soon become soulmates for you, because you're committed to the same thing, and to be willing to risk one's life even for a little thing, and to withstand all kind of torture, whether you're beaten up or whatever, because you know where something beautiful, a treasure is at, right? And to believe that your work is worthwhile and not be willing to change it. I mean, and that is why we begin our first song, which I'm going to play for you. uh Rishi, you're somewhere where I can scream, right? So let me begin with was going to start with this one, but changed my mind because it's me. I'm going to play you this. I hope your audios are on. Give me a minute to lower the volume. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I cut the song short. Can you hear me, see me, all of this, right? I cut the song short because you got the drift. And for me, it's really fascinating, that particular song, because Dylan is one of those. I mean, that particular song for me reminded me so much of another writer, because another thing that I have to disagree with you, Anjan, and I do this a lot with everyone, is that I would never put Bob Dylan in the popular culture, uh, you know, category, because I believe that an artist becomes an artist when they transcend from the popular to find their own voices and take their place in a trajectory of tradition, right? And okay, so what did Dylan do there? The Joker, the Thief. You have writers like Bukowski, you've got writers like, I mean, you've had philosophers like Diogenes who celebrated the existence of the thief, right? The peripherals. They were rich men. They were not, now, somebody's going to slam me with this argument that Dylan's a multimillionaire now. So how does one still talk about poverty? Any of these guys who drive in their limos, how are they still talking about poverty? We also remember that the artist is very detached from his art, like a surgeon. That you can't be emotionally attached very often, and it is the message, not the medium, that we're looking at. And it's quite fascinating for me that Dylan takes his place. And for those of you who are classicists and traditionalists, this might shock you, but who follows in the tradition of T.S. Eliot. Now, T.S. Eliot, those of you who know him, is like the high priest of British literature. He's an American himself who went back to Britain, and he is a neoclassicist, metaphysicist, and all of these things. And then you have this unwashed phenomenon. That's what his beloved Joan Baez calls him in Diamonds and Rust. He constructs himself in his rags and unshaven, unkempt persona on stage, and sometimes even camp, the way he portrays himself. He's broken every stereotype, everything that you can. And again, there is a theory held out by, put forth by T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot posits this idea that the artist is one who cannot be pinned down, that you cannot pin him with a carefully formulated phrase. So I don't know where to put Dylan. You want to call him folk rock, but then you have your tender love songs. You want to call him protest poet, and then you have a tongue-in-cheek song like 115th Dream. And then you have a hardcore protest like Subterranean Homesick Blues. You have all of this. And then you have this beautiful academic artistic treatise in All Along the Watchtower, where these two characters, the Joker and the Thief, recreate for us the scene. And he's a Jew, remember, born a Jew at least, into the Hasidic tradition. They recreate the situation of the crucifix, right? What would it have been like to be a person crucified for your ideals, and still at the foot of your cross, you have people gambling away your possessions, right? Look at what we're doing to our heroes today, right? We have them on our walls, we've got them in our textbooks, we've got them in our hearts, but we do what we like. I mean, their lives are, they died, they do their thing, they fight for nations, they build legacies, but we still gamble away their belongings, and merchandise has become everything. Today, a lot of art is what we merchandise. So that is what I wanted to do. There's so much you can say with that particular piece. Uh, for me, it's particularly interesting because T.S. Eliot got me my first job. So did Pink Floyd. I played a Floyd song. And interestingly, for a demo lecture, be careful. I don't know whether I was just young and foolish at the time. People were nice to me. And when you look at Dylan again, I mean, in this particular song, the images remind me, if any of you are Pink Floyd fans here, if you've heard High Hopes, the song cannot be fixed anywhere. We don't know who they're talking about. The context is so ambiguous. But there's a sense of grandeur which comes in, which leaves you feeling small when you hear the song or you listen to the lyric. And that's what Dylan does to us, right? And that, I believe, is the power of art. It it brings us to our knees without telling us. It just does it to us, right? Um, I'm also going to bring in here another musicologist whom I read about and read a little later in my life, called Philip Tagg. I'm surrounded by these. So Philip Tagg talks about intuitive qualities in music and art. We know and we can sense quality, all of us. We have a nose for quality. How we define that quality becomes what boring people like me do with research. Okay, I'm not going to take too much time. Let's move on to my next song, which I'm going to play for you. I'm running out of time, no? Faster. Okay, and then I'll just stick to one more song. I think I'll play a song which is...
It's okay. Take your time. I think everyone is having a wonderful time. So
They just because they can't go
take a
subtly.
little bit more time. It's all right. It's all right. Yeah.
Benefits of virtual reality. Okay, so just do something, dance or something when I have to shut up. So I'm going to play you this song which has informed major politicians, artists. my God, Christopher Hitchens was informed by this particular song because he quotes the last this line. Uh, I'll leave it to Dylan to say it. I'm going to mess it up if I try. The song is called "It's All Right, Ma, I'm Bleeding." It's a bit of a long song, but I'm going to play it anyway. Maybe skip a few stanzas if you'll permit me. So, with your permission, let me present this one. Can you see it? I haven't shared it, have I? Rishi?
No, no, you haven't shared it yet.
How do I do that? Because I'm not able to see the. I think I've made some.
Present now.
No, I'm not getting the present now screen at all. One sec, one sec. Let me get back here. Mm, why is it? Okay, yeah, sorry, one sec. Sorry, sorry. I'll get to it in a second. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I skipped a. Can you see it all of you? Yeah. All right.
Yes, it's showing now.
Okay, like I'm just trying to set this audio. This is a very socialist form. Like I have to do all my own work and only have people doing all this. Um, so, I mean, I think the lines were so, powerful themselves. In fact, these things, I literally have a soundtrack running in my head when I'm walking around college, particularly when I go to my classes, and because this is very personal for me. When I walk into classes, there are these kids, who a lot of people have written off, and you can see the fire in their eyes. And there was a line there which, kind of captured that. And I'm thinking to myself, sometimes I'm making such outrageous plans in my head, or I'm thinking such shocking thoughts, and I'm thinking that is why for me that last line was so important. That if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine. And I'm thinking we all lead those kind of lives where we are planning very anarchic things, so different from who we are on the outside. I actually began playing the song halfway through. So please go ahead, go back home and listen to the whole song, because it's really fascinating where it begins, where he says, "Darkness at the break of noon." Again, it's fascinating how much Christic imagery Dylan brings in, though he's, of course, gone through his born again stage and everything, and has been an atheist, has been left, has been called a misogynist, all sorts of things. He still sticks by a certain principle or a quality, which is really hard for us to define. I was going to say that, when I was talking about how rock is hard to define as opposed to pop, as opposed to folk, it seems to be more of a phenomena, an ideology of rejection of a lot of values and mainstream constricting values. And recently, in I think Rolling Stones, one of these magazines, Roger Daltrey had said that rock is dead. Why are we still searching for rock? And I do know, I'm surrounded by musicians everywhere, that rock as we knew it is dead, and many of us are mourning it. Some of us are like, let it go, let it die natural death. Let's look for newer ways of expressing ourselves. But I think it's really interesting if you notice the lyrics and the way he intoned them. And every time I hear Dylan, I it sticks. I want to walk into a class and say God bless him and all of that. But of course, I'd have my head put in a guillotine if I did these kind of ridiculous things. But anyway, there's something so enigmatic about someone who has stayed detached despite all the material opportunities and all of the you know uh, baptisms of greatness that he's been through. I mean, he's been given a Nobel Prize. The kind of flack I faced when he won that Nobel. Somebody accused me on Facebook of defending a song and dance man. I said that's the only kind of men I think are worth defending. I mean, who else? What would you defend? What else is there in life but the song and the dance? Because we, from our daily trials and tribulations and struggle, comes the song and the dance. And if that is not conquering life, what is? And I strongly believe that, I mean, for those who still believe that Dylan is a musician, folk singer, why did he get a Nobel? Shouldn't even be dignifying these things with an argument. But then, as an academic, you have to sometimes stop and answer these ridiculous questions, and I try to be very non-judgmental about it. I have a simple analogy. Homer, whom we all worship, I mean, if I have the Iliad somewhere here, but if I put Bob Dylan here, you would all say, okay, I mean, should he not be on a syllabus, etc., etc. We now have him on the syllabus. Jamia had him on the syllabus some time back. Big deal. But Homer is on every lit grad's syllabus and reading list, right? Homer was a musician himself. He sang his lyrics. He was blind. He chanted his songs as he went from town to town, accompanied by this young boy who took him as guided him through. So this entire trope of the musical, the chanted narrative, is nothing new. I mean, I think the Oscar was 2000. I'm so sorry. The Nobel was 2016 years too late, if anything at all, because what it really did was acknowledge the fact that there is music in everything we do. In fact, at my PhD defense, I said that silence is a myth. There is no silence as long as you're alive. Even those of us who have problems with hearing are still picking up on vibrations and things. So, song, as long as it deals with this, is the most connecting, sound and song. So, for me, Dylan is and always will be a classical artist. I refuse to put him into the popular category because in his work, you see, I'm going to go a little technical here. We talk about intertextuality, where the writer belongs to a certain tradition and tweaks it, right? T.S. Eliot talks about it. And I can't think of anyone else who's done that better than Dylan has. There's nothing gimmicky about him. You do have albums like your metal bands, which have done 5 minutes of silence to take it to an abstract level. Yes, I do agree those are academic exercises. But if you want to have a thought in your head, which has to be musically imprinted, and music becomes part of you. And I almost feel like an evangelist sometimes, like, crusading for the inclusion of sound and music as studies in our universities. I'm really happy that I don't see myself as a particularly intelligent person, but I was foolish enough to break through a lot of barriers, and I see that a lot of fools now who are taking this forward, and I'm really proud of you guys in Banaras Hindu, at Jadavpur, quite a few in Christ University who are working in sound, music, and breaking away from other domains like literature, performance studies, and looking at sound as an independent space for studies. Right? So I think I've overshot all decent time limits. So I'll just hang around here, and if anyone wants to ask me or say something, refute, go ahead. Please ask.
Thank you so much for that session. It was really nice, and I would like to correct you. You still have 3 minutes remaining, so you have actually ended before time.
So,
So,
yeah, but
so
I
that's good.
hope
That's great. We have more. All
yeah,
right. So one thing's for sure is that whether popular culture or not, one thing's for sure is that his songs definitely are is art, and art always generates some kind of discussion or some discourse, which always does follow. So with that note, I would like to leave the floor open for question and answers. So basically, as requested by our guest speaker, to ask your questions, please go ahead, unmute your microphones, and you can ask the questions directly,
you
and
can
we'll have this
do. I prefer it if I
short
can see
session.
you. Yeah.
All right, all right. So you can please go ahead and unmute your microphones and interact with her.
Hello.
Hi. Uh,
Hello, ma'am. Yeah, am I
yes, you are.
audible?
You are absolutely.
Okay. First of all, it's not a question. It's just something that I feel that I want to share.
Yes.
It's well relating to music as an art and literature, because what I feel is that for me, literature and music are connected in a way that they cannot be separated. Especially when we go to classics like Queen, Bob Dylan, we have Eagles, and we have so much good bands, AC/DC from the old age. And what I see is in the lyrics, it is an artwork because uh, even literature, you have to work with in a way that when you write poetry, everything has to connect with each other in a way, and there's a deeper meaning to it. Just like that, their songs are also in a way a poem. They are, we can also call them a lyrical poets in a sense because in their works we see arts in the way their lyrics is written, where meanings are also hidden in somewhere, like feelings. You can get the feeling, you cannot express it, but just listening to their music, listening to the words, you can see an art that is being performed in a different way. And but what and then this current generation of pop culture, what we see is usual category or usual type of lyrics. It's just like it's just one flow of songs that is like usually just about love or heartbreaks, and I can see that there is no there's not much artists out there like in the days of Bob Dylan and Queen and all, where it is taken to a level of deep how to say
Yes.
you
Yeah.
cannot find the deep connection that you have in those music in this day
Yeah.
and age. I don't know about the others, but that is what I feel, because when I listen to songs like from Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, and all these such great works, you have a deep level of connection to these songs. Because when I listen to music, I always look into the lyrics, because for me lyrics is one of the most important thing when I listen to a song. This not just the music itself. So
Yeah.
that's just my feeling that I wanted to give out.
Matsu, is it? Is that your name? Did I get
Yes,
it right?
yes,
Yeah, Matsu. Thank you so much for
Matthew.
that observation. I mean, you pretty much summed up everything I want to say or prove. Just that I'm guessing that I can see a whole lot of on my screen. I can see a whole lot of guitarists who and musicians who would love to, you know, refute that point that music is also a language, and it is a language definitely. And I agree with you, though. Uh, I don't know how old you are since you didn't turn your screen on. So I don't know. I try not to make these, statements about whether the music of the past and the music of the present and things like that. But I do believe that in every genre, subgenre, uh, area of music, there's quality. I mean, there's this idea. So whether you're listening, I believe even in advertisements, jingles, there's a quality, because there's certain. I see a lot of people sharing ads. I have a lot of friends in the advertising world, and a lot of these, are shared as masterpieces. And I sometimes sit and figure out why. And the soundtracks make a huge difference. The kind of music which is being used, and what it speaks, what it says to us. So I do believe that in every field, whether it is music, art, painting, whatever it is, visual art or anything, there are the pinnacles of excellence, and there are those who imitate and who are at the craft level. I make the distinction between craft and art. That everyone begins somewhere. A few people stop at being excellent craftsmen. Few people go on to becoming innovators who twist the field just a little bit. So for me, it's quite interesting what you're saying. And yeah, when you talk about Queen the other day, we were trying to see how do you compare Bob Dylan and Queen? What's the point of comparison? Definitely, there's a word which I used in something which I wrote once, which created a bit of a stir, particularly among psychologists. I use this word dissonance, and a lot of artists jumped down my throat and said all art is dissonant. I said, well, all art is, but not all pieces of work are. So those pieces, I believe, which keep that sense of dissonance, which go from a disjunct, a disruption, it's like a process. You break away and then you sustain that sense and you create something new. But it's a cyclic thing. After a point, that's going to become normative, right? That's when, again, the whole thing starts again. Somebody else comes along. So we realize that it's, art is I don't know, I've stopped calling art organic anymore. It seems to be inorganic, but it's a parallel world to what we live in, mimicking our systems of life cycles and death and revivals and resurrections and all of this. I believe these are all just my opinions off the top of my head. Yeah. So anyone else?
Hello. Uh,
Hi.
yeah, ma'am, I'm from Christ University,
All right.
and I'm a huge rock head. I play
Okay.
the drums.
Who's this?
Uh, Mark Lobo.
Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, yeah. Tell me.
Yeah. Um, yeah, when you look at Bob Dylan's lyrics,
Hmm.
and as a musician, he comes off very strong,
Yes.
powerful,
Yes.
and he. But that's not his character when it comes to interviews. He always hated interviews. He avoided media at all costs. So even his documentary, Martin Scorsese's documentary No Direction
You
Room,
watch that?
you can
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
you can see his manager doing everything, and he's totally not interested. Maybe he doesn't like us asking him personal questions, but I don't know. When you look at Bob Dylan's lyrics, it seems to me he's the kind of guy that can take anything head on. But why is it that he avoids
Hmm.
media?
I think your question, I mean, are you a media student, Mark? Uh,
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
you CP.
CP.
Right, of
Yeah.
course. So, no, that is affectionate, okay, very affectionate. So, my point here is, I mean, if you've read I mean, we will be doing courses in literature and literary theory where we talk about the author being dead, right? Roland Barthes talks about the author is dead. We don't really need to know who the author is, right? I mean, it's not crucial. For instance, you don't know we don't even know Shakespeare's authorship is doubted, I mean, whether that was the brand that
Yeah.
they created, that funny looking man with all of that. So, that's about, I think, literature being this huge, messy subject. Um, I'm sorry, Vanita, I didn't get the rest of your comment. I'll come back to it. So, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting that you said this, because a lot of authors, the musician whom I also worked on, Mark Knopfler, I mean, of course, he's much more friendly
Yes.
and hostile to the
Yeah.
press, and he gives a lot of interviews, but he keeps saying this. He's like, I've written my song, you do what you like with it now. It's your song now. It's out there in the public, right? So you do what you like with it. If at all, we concur on what it is, that's good luck. But otherwise, there is no need for us to know what an author meant. We talk about authorial intention. There's no intentional fallacy. We'll study all of this. But really, what's fascinating for me is the lyric by itself, even if you don't know who Dylan is, it still manages. And let me tell you, you're a PR student. The best PR is no PR. Bad PR is good PR. So, you act like a brat and say, I don't want to be seen in public and all of this. Your ratings are shooting up. You know how it is. So, don't fall for the myths that you guys create, okay, media students. There's no such thing as no PR. Everyone knows how to get their attention. This morning he was on Instagram. I mean, I'm sure he has PR people handling his handle, but still, there is, we'd like to just, yesterday I'm working on a research group where somebody was talking about serial killers. Even serial killers leave a fingerprint, they leave their artistic signature. So we were trying to see whether there's any connection between art and murder, serial killing. Because, somewhere there seems to be little notes left for the audience or the police to catch and find out who these people are. Even Emily Dickinson left behind something to write. So it's not like you really want that. It's a different kind of, we don't want to sit down. I mean, sorry, not me, but artists don't want to sit down and talk and make your polite conversation. But that doesn't mean that they do want the public at some level. I do believe the public and the audience is important at some level, despite the masks. And Dylan has this persona of the multiple masks that he has. Again, like the thief, he's been likened to Hermes, the Greek god of the roads, who keeps running. He's on the run all the time. Can't pin him down. Anyway, there may be some other questions. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering. That was a nice answer.
We do have time for some more questions. So if anyone wants to ask a question, you can please go ahead, unmute your microphone and ask a question.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi. Right.
Ma'am, Zolu.
Okay, hi, Zulu. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm not very familiar with Bob Dylan, but as you have mentioned that, yeah, his songs are related, like, it's related to literature, and we know that literature and music is completely a different genre. But I actually want to know that before the musics are actually inspired by the literatures, right? Like
Yeah.
it's inspired by literature, and then yeah. So, I do. For me, I think that today's generation music are not actually related to literature, or they are completely different. Like it's very opposite to the um, like ancient times or this artist Bob Dylan. So I want to know your opinion on how and about this today's generation musics.
Okay, two things. One of, like I said, I'm a little wary about talking about generational differences because I work with people who are half my age, so I can't really make that distinction. I'm very often thinking like they are because I have to. There's no choice, and then I need to confront the world that we all live, cohabit. Interestingly, I have this. You were talking about the past classical. Yeah, let me tell you who the villain is. At the risk of being thrown out of my job, so actually, the villain in this divorce which happened between music and literature, because I believe it was a very happy marriage. Music, the song, when we begin our study of literature, we begin with Cadman's hymn. Cadman is a stable boy who worked in the monastery, and he was unfit to even speak about theological ideas. But he had a vision one night in which he got an entire hymn, and then that explained how the world is divided, the cosmology. And he went and sang it in front of abbots and bishops and archbishops. And after that, he was also, he was glorified, etc. But my point here is, music and literature were the word and the sung word and the written word, the chanted word, the written word have always been together. The divorce between these two beautiful soulmates came from none other than the universities, right? It was people like me who put musicology separately from sociology, separately from anthropology, separately from media studies, sound, all of this, and took this, what we study in our literature classes is a skeleton, So when I'm reading a script in class, for instance, some of you are here, Swarup, you're here. So, we've done readings of plays like Emperor Jones. It's such a, empty reading because the sound quality, the performance, the body, the language, everything is just left there. It's not brought into the arena. So I think it's very important that today, thanks to postmodern times where we are looking at collapsing of these rigid barriers and multidisciplinarity, we are putting these areas back together. In fact, I have quite a few students here who have co-authored with me papers on literary understandings of music. We worked on Pink Floyd's time. We've written papers. We've done these kind of things. So it's not entirely true that literature and music are separated. In fact, church music, right? The greatest hymn writers, Charles Wesley, John Wesley, all of them, you will find lots of the sometimes when I go to church, I don't sing because I have brilliant musicians around me, but I'm listening to the hymns and I'm thinking the kind of community it builds. A lot of the times we don't understand the hymns as in they're ancient languages, or sometimes when the young praise groups sing, the older people are saying, "Oh, this is noisy music." But none of us can deny one fact that is bringing us together as a community. I don't know for what, how it does it. It's a very, it happens at a spiritual level almost. So this separating song from word, the linguistic language from sound language, oral language, is something which academics did. So let's not go with that today. And also another argument that I have been making is all art should work towards abstraction, right? You cannot, for instance, a lot of young people think that if you write something meaningless, it's abstract art. Not at all. You need to go through the shake, rattle, and roll before you get to the level of the classics where the abstraction comes in, where you have your breaks, you have your pauses, your time for thinking, for the entry of the audience, all of these manipulative, beautifully maneuvered things. So I do believe artists are working on their independent axis, and the entire world of art is like the planets moving together. The whole world of art is moving, right? Individually each artist is evolving on his own little axis, and then together all of us, the community, because academics have to be there too, because we are the ones who we're like the Prometheans. We take the fire from the gods, which is the artist, and we bring it to the people. So I wish academicians would take themselves more seriously and respect art as it should. We don't. Unfortunately, we think we come first. It's like the chicken and egg dilemma. We wouldn't have a job if we didn't respect the artists, right? I speak particularly about the humanities and liberal arts. That is our job. It's a Promethean job. It's a huge job, but that has to happen. So I won't blame the younger generation. They're going through their own evolutions. They will come to the place that you want them to come. You probably have read and listened to a lot more. So please be patient. I try my best, and I'm sure you can. When you listen to lyrics which are not quite there, or a song which is not quite there, it's getting there, and we need to allow it. Okay, I think I took a long time answering that. Hope it made sense. Yes.
We do have time for two more questions, so please go ahead and you can unmute your microphone and ask them.
Have I just been too fast and too full of fury?
All right. Okay, as we wait for questions to come in, I thought I'll just ask a question of my own. Now, this question might actually anger a lot of the people sitting here for this talk, especially. No, because I wanted to check with you. Okay, art is very subjective. That is, of course, there. The way we interpret art or appreciate art. I feel that there should be a kind of a right sort of a thing given to an individual to actually let them choose for themselves if they find this particular piece of art as great or not. Now, in terms of Bob Dylan, the question is this: in case you find, in case of songs like his, okay, if there is a person who actually listens to like let's say 20 of his songs and still agrees that or still says that the songs are not great enough, how should we as people who actually like Bob Dylan, okay, respond to such a comment? Or how would you respond to such a comment?
I
There
think
are
I've
some people
seen
who
a
have
lot
their
of
opinions.
Buddha.
So
I have Buddha figurines all over the place. The first thing you learn when you enter this profession of teaching. I refuse to call myself a teacher because I have not taught anybody anything. Everybody knows more than I do, and I'm constantly being put in my place by everybody, older, younger, my age, everybody. So that's first thing I need to disabuse the audience of also. But secondly, I mean, who are we to decide for somebody else what they want to consume, right? And today, in a very
Mm.
consumerist world where we're paying for everything, I mean, if you think that all these musicians who are putting out free music there on Spotify or doing these, live streaming sessions, you're paying for the internet, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch. Anything we do, and I do believe money is a good thing. It has become, unfortunately for us in this world, an indicator of quality, right? And I'm sorry, not an indicator of quality. How do you say it? Like a price on. I also need to distinguish between price, cost, value, these kind of things. However, it's like, what is the option to language? I don't know how to communicate with you. How else will I communicate? Through body language or through some kind of language? We need language. We can't live without it. We need money. So the same way, there's a little bit of that happening. However, I don't believe that we should be looking at bands or musicians by their numbers. It would be in an ideal world, you can make your music and die and nobody cares and nobody listens to it. Are you happy with what you've said and done? Right? Have you said what you wanted to say? Now, there's a danger here. You use the word subjective. This word subjectivity is like one of the major problems which see, we're forgetting that art is a huge process. It's a dynamic process. It's not just I paint and I keep, even if I'm locked up in a room alone writing a book and I tear it up in shreds before it reaches the public, I wrote it. I began with an experience which I processed into a thought, which I put down on paper, and then I tore it up. Nobody read it. But that process happened, right? And so subjectivity can happen at many levels. As an author, I have the right to choose what I want to write about. You can't tell me what to write about, right? That's authorial independence. Then I produce it in my own way. I give it a form, I give it a shape, all of that. Then I write it down. I write it whichever way I want. And then I do what I want with it. Now, that's in a very ideal world. But then there are the writers who are going commercial, right? Who are going directly to the agents. And the agent tells you, now, this is one thing about pop music. It's driven by market forces. It's a commodity. So your musicians, I will not mention them, will produce what the market wants because it's being played on air, 3 minutes, everything is being done. And then there are those who will say, no, I will not do that. I will use my own thing. And money is not the main thing. Suddenly they do become rich. So I don't know how to answer this. Quantity, quality, there's a very thin divide. Quality seems to lead to quantity. Everyone agrees. The number of people who idolize Pink Floyd, you just tell me. Compared to, say, a local band or something like that, I know it's a problem because young bands need to do this now. You'll have like your Greta Van Fleet who begin by imitation. Then what happens to them? Where are they now? Because they stayed at the craft level, where they stayed in the Led Zeppelin shadow. I don't know. Really can't comment on them because I haven't followed their careers so much. But I'm thinking you become an artist when you find your own true voice. But that cannot be in isolation. There is an audience, and you have to be. Yeah, Advait, there's something, ma'am, doesn't work. What? What's the question? Advait has a question. I can't read it. It went by. Can you read that?
Question though, in the most, I'm just going to read
Yeah,
it out. In most forms of art, there's a
yeah,
craft that
yeah. I got the question.
exists behind it, which needs practicing and almost a mechanical drive. Okay,
Yeah,
so
do
you can
we
go ahead
need
and answer
does
that.
literature need a craft? Absolutely. And this is exactly why you need to keep writing and you need to keep trashing what you write. And at no point should we be concentrating on becoming poets and writers and musicians. I think we should be practicing the craft, which is why for me, it's a little funny comic when I hear people saying I'm a poet. Uh, and this is probably why I'm so enamored by Dylan, who's never called himself, a rock star. He's just doing his thing and taking the people with him. Incidentally, it's an incidental. So the craft of writing, yes, Arvit. When you become a copywriter, you'll know that your drafts will be thrown back in your face many times because at that point, it's going to be money which will define whether your work is worthy or not. I'd like to think I've been accused very often by my brothers also here, who's with advertising, who always tells me, you spoil your students, you make them feel good about their writing. So I've become nasty now. So I tell them how bad they are. And it's not them, it's the writing. It's a craft. It's not you. Don't be offended when someone tells you. The worst people to give criticism to is those who ask for it. They come to say, give me your feedback. And then the minute you say, this meter is slightly off, and they'll say, no, I meant it to be that. And then, okay, fine. There's nothing I can say. I've recently moved into the theatre studies department, and I'm learning from some of my young colleagues how vital feedback is, and to be able to take criticism beautifully. I mean, it's such an humble thing to do. I don't think many of us have that in us to be able to listen to other perspectives, right? So
We have time for one last
Okay,
question. So
okay.
if anyone has a question, you can
Yeah,
just go
yeah.
ahead and ask.
Sanjan.
Dr.
Okay,
Rick, go
okay.
ahead. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello, ma'am. I'm so
hi,
happy to listen to you. I just want to ask one
yes,
small thing so that you
sure,
can throw some more light on that.
if I can.
And my question is like, see, be it the poet, be it the songwriters, playwriters, or be it a cinema director, or
Correct.
be it any writer of any
Yeah,
time. I think
yeah,
they are deeply conditioned and influenced by their time, space, and their environment.
of
So
course.
when we talk about Bob Dylan, I think his song is very powerful in the form of his the lyrics that we are able to read. Because regarding the tone, the tune, and the sound and the music, I think many people may not like it because
Absolutely.
music is very subjective to different
Yeah.
people. Because
Tastes.
some people like rock music, some people like little sentimental, some
Of
people like
course.
romantic. Some people like really really loud and this sort of
Yes.
music. So can you just kindly throw some little bit more light about the environment of Bob Dylan, which influenced him,
Yeah, of
deeply?
course. Yeah, right. I think everybody is familiar with the 1960s and the civil rights in America, and he shot to fame with this. I listened to a very interesting talk this morning. Dylan himself talking about how he was mocking, and I have colleagues who laugh at me and call me academic as an insult almost. It's like, oh, there comes the academic kind of thing. So they're all artists. So it's very fascinating that this is what I was going to say. That taste is very different from the art itself. So many of us, for instance, there may be classical music, like Indian classical music is an acquired taste. Not everybody can actually, immediately understand or appreciate Carnatic vocalists and things like that. This is just an example. Coming back to what you're saying, I think every personal taste is something we cannot change. There are people who don't like chocolate. I mean, for me, that's really difficult. Or there are people who don't like coffee. I mean, for me, this is all shocking. How do you not like coffee? So, but then there are those who really hate coffee, who hate chocolate, and that's not something I'm interested in. But what I'm interested in is whether you like or hate that coffee or that chocolate, it was the best of its kind. It did what it was supposed. Sorry to sound little to bring in a little philosophy here, but it's essential, right? So that coffee which you don't like is because it's being the best coffee that it is. It is the coffiness of that coffee cannot be denied. If it starts tasting like tea, I have friends who argue with me saying, why would you add orange juice to vodka? It is vodka. Drink vodka as vodka. Don't add orange juice to it, right? Or don't add chocolate to milk. Why are you doing these things? Just drink it as it is. Well, this is taste because you need to get the nutrition, or you're looking for some kind of an high or whatever it is. That is what you're going to do. So we need to appreciate the fact that Dylan did what he did. He was at the forefront of a civil rights movement. He was able to make academics like Christopher Ricks in Cambridge question. In fact, Christopher Ricks says, he's from Cambridge, English department. He says, if you want to read Shakespeare, begin by listening to Dylan, because this is the voice of philosophy. I mean, he's talking to you about what it is to be. It'll take you 100 pages to get to Hamlet's uh, rather underwhelming soliloquy, where he says to be or not to be, which is just four two letter words, and you're wondering what is the big deal about this. But it is in the Ballad of a Thin Man, where uh, what's his name, Dylan will take you through the quandary of how to live in this 20th century, 21st century. Where is it materialism? Do you know where it's at? What are you looking for? Do you fit in? Do you belong? Do you not? Right? So I've always believed that taste is different. I mean, I am not someone who likes like progressive metal, all of this. I mean, it's not. It may not be something that I like, but I respect the form. I respect the craft, and I respect the art of the artist because I know what goes into it. So I do believe, as an uninitiated reader, listener, viewer, we like popular cinema. We like this over that, or some of us like, I like Tamil cinema because I'm Tamil. It's not always the best, but yeah, we do have a little baggage. But on the other hand, as an academic, you have to distance yourself from these tastes. We have to go beyond the taste and look at the process, because the taste comes from the product. So So yes, you're right. I know a lot of people who don't like Dylan. I was not a Dylan fan when I set out researching him, but as I began to see that the lyrics were fusing with his voice, his presentation, his guitars, his entire choice to depart from the acoustic to the electric, to experiment with different styles and master almost all the crafts he did, made me sit back and say, this man is a genius, because he never allowed Dylan to uh, subdue his art. His art dominated over him, and I think that's a great quality of an artist. So that's my response to that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, keeping in mind the time, I think it's the right time to end over here. I had told ma'am earlier as well that having your session on a Friday is like possibly the best way to end the week. And this has been a very interesting session. A lot of thought, okay, insights gained. And I do hope that we will get a chance in the future as well to hear more from you and learn more from you. So thank you everyone for having joined us and having made this session worth the while. And so that's about it from our end. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. And before I sign out, I just wanted to also thank our IT team. Our IT team has done a wonderful job of helping us out with the slides and the sound, especially. This was a whole new thing of us learning how to broadcast sound over Google Meet. But we mastered it thanks to ma'am as well, who
Bring,
was very
we should bring
enthusiastic.
Rishi onto the screen, for having done that.
Yeah,
Having already
Rishi
been,
actually did a wonderful job. Rishi is our IT consultant, and he was able to master and help us out a lot with this regard. So thank you so much over there. And so that's about it. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
thank you very much, Anjay. Bye, all of you. I'll sign out here. Bye.